Hello and welcome, bitches. I'm just kidding. If you're watching this, I love you. But we're back for another talk, just about something fucking random I could think about that is somewhat relevant to the previous talks we've already talked about. So we've already talked about the subconscious mind, how we understand our engagement with it, how we understand how we can start putting things into the subconscious mind to start changing it. But on this one, we're really going to kind of expand on changing the patterns in the brain and developing the subconscious mind. Because it's very important, to be honest, because most of our existence is literally our subconscious. So like 80% of the time you're on autopilot. So whenever we can understand how we can utilize all of our brain, right? You know, people used to say, well, you're only using X% of your brain. Well, technically, you're not using 100% of your brain in your favor, right? So it's understanding how we deep dive into the sections of the mentality and start changing how some of these work so that we can make the entire conclusiveness of the mind work in fluidity into our favor, right? Because honestly, I feel like changing the conscious mind is pretty easy for anybody, right? Because that's kind of your place of awareness, and when you exemplifying what you are aware of, but changing things is what is stuck in the subconscious processing. So the best thing that I can tell anybody ever is understand what frequency your mind is supposed to be at for you to change the patterns of it, and then start doing your work on oneself, right? How? Well, you go through a particular amount of frequency states throughout a day. Now, the most prominent one where you are in your subconscious mind and experiencing it most is called Theta. You can go do your research on the frequencies of the brain. It's like a quick 5-10 minute video. Go watch that. I don't remember it necessarily to recite it off. I just remember what's important and relative to what I'm talking about. So the part that you're really trying to get to is, because once you have an understanding of yourself and you know what processes are running, then you can start delegating what you work on first. And I mean, one thing at a time. You can't conquer it all in a day, right? But planting seeds in all of these little areas, because your thoughts are already seeds that have been planted before, right? That's why your processes are running. You're looking at those trees. That's your reality right now, your perspective. And those things run constantly. So how do we start getting things to shift? Well, implanting ideas in Theta. When you are in Theta, that is whenever you are at your purest form to be able to objectively look at things, right? And you could almost say it as a form of meditation. Well, I guess I didn't expand on what Theta is, right? Right before you go to sleep, right? When you are laying down, when you're relaxing, when you're just chilling, that's Theta, right? So almost a state of meditation, practically, is Theta. And in Theta, that's whenever you are going to have, I would say, a meditation, but some people think meditation is quieting your mind, and there's different types of meditation. So for this, it's not necessarily something that you go into with, yeah, I'm going to do this specific thing. Just do what you naturally would do, right? If your mind is going to run, then let the mind run. If it doesn't, and you can't shut the mind off while going into meditation, then start figuring out how exactly it's going to run. What are you going to do, right? What is your purpose for going into that space? And so this kind of ties into manifesting a little bit, but I don't want to dive too much on that. But you know, when we talk about what you are what you think about, and implementing other ideas that are the opposite of what you are currently thinking to change the frequency of your brain is hard to do whenever you are influenced over emotion in a conscious mind. And so the way that we do this instead is at the subconscious in Theta. You basically do roughly the same thing, right? Where you are aware of these thoughts, but instead of attaching yourself emotionally, this is that one state where you can, even if you are attached emotionally, to a good degree, connect to those thoughts and then figure out what you're going to do with them and how you're going to implement a new seed of thought into that process so it changes over time, right? Because unfortunately, egoism and deep negativity breed delusion. And in this delusion, without us ever expressing the opposite of what we've experienced, it's difficult for us to understand where reality sits outside of that delusion. And so we have to understand, once again, that we're searching for peace. We're not searching for happiness. Peace is this like bubble right in the middle, at the bottom, that you have no emotional attachments or ties to anything. And you understand how to deal with oneself in any case, right? Emotionally, physically, having self-discipline. Now, leaning left or leaning right leads you into the place of delusion. And most people sit in those places, right? Where they are so full of themselves that even if I tell somebody it's going to be okay or something optimistic, their mind is stuck on their negative prerogatives. So they are going to be lost in the sauce, as most people do end up getting lost in the sauce. So, but once again, changing the patternization of your brain is a feat that takes time. We are having to change the structure slowly of how the mind is functioning. But implanting these seeds while you are in a state of theta gives you the ability to see some type of result over time. Because, let's say you hit a thought loop. Anxiety is a great example, to be honest. Let's say you're existing in the future. And I am just thinking about too much in the future, and I am existing there, and I am very anxious about it because I'm processing 1.5 million what ifs. But if while I'm in theta, I practice giving myself positive reassurance about those exact same thoughts without emotionally being connected to them, then the next time that I experience that while I'm in my full wakeful state, then there's already a defense mechanism built in as a coping thing to give myself the reassurance I need, so that way, and in the thoughtful manner, not just intensely, but as those thoughts come, then my muscle memory essentially has already combated that to the brain neural processes, and that's when I can start changing my brain to move in a place where I'm thinking at a higher elevation, right? And I usually describe specific things in frequencies, and I will definitely say I describe the energy as frequency at the same point, right? So the thoughts that you have are just energy. And so shifting oneself into changing those processes gives you the slow uprise of your vibration. At the end of the day, we are all trying to get away from the low vibrational things, whether it's low vibrational thoughts, low vibrational people, low vibrational substances, food, drinks, anything that is not adequate to oneself, to your self-worth, right? I talk about subconscious self-destruction in another episode, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But awareness and honesty are your biggest tools here, more than anything, as they always will be. But if you can't be objective, no matter what you're doing, then half the time you're just strung out along multiple frequencies trying to figure out how you're going to ground yourself in something, right? And some people end up grounding themselves in lower vibrations, but you can ground yourself in higher vibrations. But to do so, you have to be able to have built up a repertoire with yourself enough to sit there, so that way even when low vibrational things come around, it's like smacking it away instead of being, tied to it, to that place where it's coming from in any sense, right? You become more in control. And the whole purpose of this is understanding how we find control. Because I think everybody understands that the way you react and the decisions you make is in your control. But what a lot of people end up forgetting is that your mind is in your control. And the problem with that is people don't have the blueprint. It's very difficult to find and understand the blueprint. I mean, hell, nobody really gets the opportunity to expand on their emotional intelligence unless they do it themselves. But hey, that's why I'm here. trying to put this information out because I feel like I've understood enough of it to be able to give some type of direction to other individuals. And I try not to get too off topic with some of these, so I'm trying to see if I've said everything I need to say. So, sometimes with some topics, it's like I could trail on a couple topics in one video and we could make this 30 minutes, an hour long. But I feel like hitting all the main points of one specific area can really be more beneficial. But honestly, for this specific topic, there's not really much else to it, right? You have to plant those seeds. Sit in Theta. Sit in different brain frequencies and understand what frequencies you are emitting. I talk about this in another episode that actually really relates to this, is the power that we have, right? And understanding how powerful our thoughts are, because our thoughts become the dictator of our existence, right? So, you know, you'll accumulatively create thought regardless of what you do, but what about the back end, right? Like, you know, say your voice in your head to yourself right now, like your subconscious position, you know, the awareness point of view where these certain things are stemming from that inhabit your existence. It's like, well, you have the ability with that right there to take control, right? Because once again, thoughts will happen, but you can create an influence on them. But I think many people forget that that influence has to be set at the subconscious level, because the reason why those thoughts are processing in the first place on the top is because they've been deep rooted into your subconscious, and that's why that's what's popping up. So you have to hit it at the source. I'm all about solving problems at the source of it, and at the source, which is in your subconscious, is where you'll be able to have your position to slowly move into higher vibrations and find peace. Peace really can only be achieved with oneself at the end of the day. So, I made this topic so specific. There's not really much else for me to say on it. I'm trying to think, kind of rummaging over all of the thoughts, and there's not really much else to say about patternizing your brain and understanding how the patterns work, right? Everything is vibration. Your thoughts are vibration. They're frequencies. You emit a frequency when you think a particular way. So if you want to take control of what exists already, your mind, then you're gonna have to do your work. Anybody that truly wants to get there can get there. We all are no different from one another at the end of the day. We're all humans. If I can do it, then anybody else can too. But it takes time. You're a human. Don't give up at the end of the day. And I believe in you. Keep saying in your vocabulary. No. Once again, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. Because honestly, I've thought a lot about a lot of shit, but my expansion on a lot of these ideas end up becoming very like straightforward. I've tried to make the information as straightforward as I can. So it can be difficult to be trying to go on a 30-40 minute podcast, but I don't think the time necessarily matters. Oh, I do want to mention this though. If you feel like you are stuck like entirely with this too, like you've tried it, you end up feeling like you kind of hit a wall with it, start trying to utilize visualization to your advantage. Saying things physically throughout the day, right? Even if you are having thoughts that are saying one thing, verbally say the opposite, right? and do your best to implement combating that thought loop that is arising. And you just kind of have to keep doing your best to impose yourself on it. It's really the only way that you get to conquer those thoughts. A lot of people want to run away. If you want to run away, then this podcast probably isn't for you, to be fair, because this is for people that are, you know, just trying to find maybe some good and useful information to help progress themselves in their mind. But when you fully think about your awareness, and then think at the same time, being aware of the processes you have, that already shows you the power you have, right? Like, think about the subconscious self-destruction, right? Like the things that you know you've done that aren't good for you, that is your mind exhibiting its power. So with that, I tell you, my friends, dive back into that subconscious and find your power. Take it back. Rediscover yourself. You've never been away from it. You're just rediscovering where and who you once were and expanding on that. So good luck to you. I believe in you. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode.